Hi everyone, we're going to go over the answers to the test 22A. This is for extra credit. Make sure you show your work. Now test 22 is probably the most challenging test we've had so far, so please pay attention, use what you learn in this video to apply it to your test that is for a grade. Alright, number 1, which digit in 1 and 3,725 ten-thousandths is in the thousandths place? The thousandths place is right here. So it's 2. This is the tenths, the hundredths, the thousandths, the ten-thousandths. So the answer is 2. Number 2, a bolt of cloth is 40 yards long. How many feet long is a bolt of cloth? There are 3 feet in a yard, so we multiply 40 by 3 and we get 120 feet. Number 3, which of these figures has no line of symmetry? Well, we can look at the figures we have. A is an equilateral triangle. It has 3 sides, so it will have 3 lines of symmetry. B is a rectangle. It has 2 lines of symmetry. C is a semicircle. It has 1 line of symmetry. And then D does not have any lines of symmetry. The sides of this triangle are not the same length. 4. There are 7 boys and 14 girls in the class. What is the ratio of boys to girls? So we have 7 boys and 14 girls. We write that as a fraction, and then we just reduce it. Number 5, write 40% as a reduced fraction. So we start with 40 over 100 because that's 40%. Then we divide the top by 20 and the bottom by 20 to reduce it. So that's the greatest common factor. So 40 divided by 20 is 2. 100 divided by 20 is 5. And you can use more than one step to reduce this. You could divide by 10. As long as you keep going and reduce it to lowest terms, it's okay. Okay, now number 6 is a tricky one. We have 50 dimes. 8 were minted before 1983. What percent of the dimes in the roll were minted? It's not going to be 8% because we're not working with 100. So we have 8 out of 50. In order to find the percent, we need that bottom number to be 100. So we multiply the top by 2 and the bottom by 2. Once we have that fraction out of 100, we can get our percent, 16%. Number 7, round parts A and B to the nearest whole number. 3 2/7 will round down to 3. 101 and 496 thousandths will round down to 101 because this number right here after the decimal is a 4. If it was 5, we would round up. 8. Compare. This is kind of an easy one. Which one's bigger? Of course, 12 and 5/10 will be bigger than 1 and 25 hundredths. So 1 and 25 hundredths is less than 12 and 5/10. Number 9, what's the perimeter of the square? For perimeter, you just add up the sides. So 11 plus 11 plus 11 plus 11 is 44 centimeters. Number 10, the area of the square, you multiply the length times the width. Since it's a square, we know all the sides are the same size, the same length. So we're going to multiply 11 by 11 and we get 121 square centimeters. You can also write 121 centimeters square. Alright, now the back page gets a little trickier. You have to show your work on these or I will not give you credit for this. If you just write down an answer, I'm not going to give you extra credit points. You're just copying down my work. Okay, so 11, we have all these decimals we need to add up. So I've done this down at the bottom of the page. And the best way to do that is start with the longest and then go down to the shortest. So if you start with the longest decimal, then make sure everything's the same, has the same number of places. So we'll fill in everything missing with zeros. And then we can add. So this column will just be 1. This column, 4 plus 6 is 10. I'll carry my 1. 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 7 is 10, plus 6 is 16. Carry my 1. Go ahead and put my decimal. 1 plus 4 is 5. Plus 3 is 8. Plus 8 is 16. So my answer is 16 and 601 thousandths. So I'll go back up to the top and write it right there. All right. Number 12, we're going to subtract 3 4/10 minus 1. Notice how I just added a 0, so they have the same number of decimal places. My answer is 2 4/10. Number 13, I have it lined up. Let's add our zeros to make it easier to work with. You're going to show your work. We have to borrow here. We need to borrow. We'll have to go all the way over here to borrow. Make that an 8. Make that a 10. And to get this one, we'll have to reduce that one to a 9. Make that a 10. Okay. 10 minus 4 is 6. 9 minus 9 is 0. 8 minus 8 is 0. So we have 6 hundredths. Show your work on this. Number 14. That's another one we're going to show our work on. We're going to multiply. 6 times 7 is 42. I'll carry my 4. 6 times 1 is 1, plus 4 is 10. Now I don't need to do anything with this 0 because everything will be 0. The most important thing is count the numbers behind a decimal. I have 2 numbers behind a decimal. You don't just drop it down in a multiplication problem. You count the digits behind the decimal. So I have 1, 2. I have 1 and 2 hundredths. 15. 21 hundredths times 4 tenths. So we can work that out right under the problem, I think. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 0 is 0. We don't even really have to write that. 0 times everything will be 0. Now I have 3 numbers behind a decimal, so my answer needs 3 numbers behind a decimal. 1, 2, 3. And I'll put a 0 there in front of it. 84 thousandths. Okay, 16. 16, you have to do the part in parentheses first, or else your answer will not be right. I want you to line it up, not try to do it in your head. Okay, so we have 2 minus 1 4/7. We need a fraction here in order to work with this, so we're going to borrow from the 2. It's 1 7/7. 7/7 minus 4/7 is 3/7. 1 minus 1 is 0. So that means this part right here is 3/7, this whole thing. Now we need to add 3/7 to the rest of the original problem. So I'm going to go over here so I have room to work. 3 5/7 plus 3/7. Let's go ahead and line that up. It looks a little bit, it'll make it easier to work with. 5/7 plus 3/7 is 8/7. So I have 3 8/7, but that's an improper fraction, so I need to correct that. This becomes 1 1/7. So if I add that to the 3, I'll end up with 4 1/7. All right, number 17. Number 17 is a multiplication problem. We multiply the part in parentheses first. 6 times 11/12, we put a 1 underneath there, and you just multiply straight across. 6 times 11 is 66. 1 times 12 is 12. Then we still have the rest of the problem. 3/5 times 66/12. This is a huge problem. Okay, let's multiply straight across. 3 times 66. Might have to go out to the side and work that out. 66 times 3. 18 plus 1, 198. So we have 198 over 60. This is a crazy problem. All right. How many times will 60 go into 198? It will go into 198 3 times. And I'll have 18 left over. 60 times 3 is 180. So then I'll have 3 and 18/60ths. And then I need to reduce that. I know this is a crazy problem. And if I reduce that, I can divide the top and bottom both by 6. So I'll have 3 and 3/10. Number 18, we're just going to add. So 2/3 plus 2/3 is 4/3. And then we have 5 and 4/3. That's an improper fraction, so we need to convert it. 4/3 is the same thing as 1 and 1/3. So just add those up, and you'll get 6 and 1/3. When you divide fractions, you flip the second number and multiply. So I'll have 6/7 times 1/3, and that is 6/21. Because this is 3, it's like a 3/1. When you flip it, it's going to be 1/3. And finally, number 20. What's the volume of a box of cereal with the dimensions shown? For volume, you multiply the length times the width times the height. So 10 times 8 is 80. 80 times 2 is 160. So we have 160 cubic inches, or you can write 160 inches cubed. That's it for the extra credit. Please refer back to this when you take your test. And I want to point out your power-up test. It's the same one I accidentally copied last week. For the bottom part of this test, and I know you can see the answers to the top part. That's fine. You can see some of those answers too. So that will help you check your work up there at the top, that last row. When you make a tree for the spinner, this is what you do. All right, so that's what your tree should look like. That's what your answer should look like for your tree diagram. All right, do a good job on your test. Bye.